Welcome back to part 2 of the log splitter resurrection. We're going to go ahead and jump right into getting more things taken care of on this and getting it back to a good working condition before we start doing any kind of modifications on it. I just want to make sure this thing's going to be up and running the way it should be. So if you haven't seen the first video or part 1 on this, go check that out, and this video will make a lot more sense. But let's jump into continuing on the maintenance of this thing. All right, I'm using my oil pump here that I use for draining oil out of vehicles, and it just happens to work pretty well. Got my siphon hose down in the tank there, and it's down into the lower corner now. One thing I did notice is it is pulling out pretty milky white hydraulic oil, so I think it was probably time to change it. I'm sure it's probably got water in it, and got another jug here. You can see it is not the best looking hydraulic oil, so I'm pretty sure that it was absolutely ready for a change. We got the tank off, got it over here, and I'm assuming that it's leaking somewhere on one of these welds. I honestly don't know. But before we get to that, I want to go ahead and jump to got a new oil filter for it, or new hydraulic filter for it. I bought new return and vacuum lines from the tank to the pump on this thing, so I'm going to replace them. One thing that when I got to looking at this, the old lines, this one's got a wear spot in it right here, and it was pretty dry rotted at the ends, as well as the vacuum side of that pump. It's pretty dry rotted there as well. And there was a real good rub point here. So I want to get the rub points taken care of before I go ahead and put new ones in. I got a lot longer than what I need because I just don't know that I want to put that tank right back to where it was. And if I raise this unit up, I will need more length to get down to that tank if it doesn't rise up with the rest of the machine. So got that taken care of. I bought a new muffler for it. Actually, I bought 2 new mufflers, so I'm going to try something here. And I'm really curious if I can make this thing quieter by splitting it into 2 out of 1 and see if that makes any difference. So that's on the project list to try to get done. And I've got to go ahead and actually clean this tank out now. I've got it drained, but there's still probably just a very little bit of oil in there. Well, here's something I found that was kind of interesting and a pleasantly nice surprise. But as I got this thing out and loosened it, it's got a nice screen filter on it. Yeah, it's dirty. It's going to need cleaned, but boy, that's nice that it had a filter on it. You can see there's a little bit of oil and debris left in there. So we'll get this tank good and cleaned out before we ever introduce any nice, good, clean hydraulic oil into it. Well, that cleaned up rather nicely. Got the tank all cleaned up, had some plugs in it, and I rinsed it all out, got all the hydraulic oil out of it, so washed it out. And as I was doing that, I put the plugs in this side, and I just put some air in it to blow it out. Right there is my culprit for my leak. There is a hairline crack that runs right about that point, all the way down. It's right about that point. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll go in and I'll grind this out, put a little bit of a groove in there, because you can't just weld over the top of that. You've got to actually groove that out. You've got to get it to, you got to go beyond the crack on each side to get it to stop cracking when you grind it out, and then start your weld in each one of that. And I think that's what I'm going to try to do. So that's the area I need to grind out of there, right where that crack is. All right, you can see I ground it out past the crack in there. You can actually see it down through there. And I'm hoping that what I'm doing here is the proper way. All right, got some air pressure to it. Belly of it's swollen out a little bit. We'll spray some of this juice on here. Dang it, it's still leaking. I probably ought to check the bottom side of it too, just to make sure. Well, I'm glad I looked because there's a tiny little spot right there. There's another little spot over here. Boy, that's going to be tough because that's actually right where that bracket is welded on there. Huh, how about this? Yeah, where that's leaking there, that bracket shouldn't be letting air in because there was no weld seam on it other than where they welded the bracket on, unless they burnt down through it, but I don't know that. It's just kind of a poor situation with the mounting tabs right on the actual tank itself. Okay, finally got this one fixed up here. No leaks, it's all pressurized. No bubbles. So now, flip it over and check the other side. Well, I got the tank all welded up. There was no leaks with the air bubbles, but here's the thing. With any of the vibration, anything like that, it's hard to say whether any one of those welds could open back up. So what I did was stopped at our local auto parts store and got some of this POR 15 fuel tank sealer. I'm going to go ahead and pour it in here and do as the instructions say, rotate it around, do all that stuff, and make sure that it gets down. And the best part about it is whatever I get in here, and my last process will be to sit this down flat on its belly, and that's where the leaks were, was down on those bottom seams where they welded this thing together. So it should help seal that up from the inside as well as the welds that I did on the outside. I'm going to go ahead and paint the outside of this too and get it all ready so it doesn't rust anymore as well. While I'm waiting for the tank sealer to dry, I decided to hop over here and take a look at this and see why this thing wobbles so bad. And I'm guessing it's a bad bearing. Not sure if I want to spend the money on it, but you can see how bad that thing's wobbling there. So we'll get this thing off, take a look at it, and see if a little bit of grease will fix it. But I kind of doubt it. When it's that bad, there's a bad bearing in there. So we'll get this thing off and check it out. Got all the bearings out, got the hubs off of it. And unfortunately, the bearings are pretty well shot. And those rings are just eaten alive. Some of them are missing, they're tore up. So there's no saving that. The other thing is both of the hubs on this internal seal or race or guide it is, it's actually got worn in grooves where those bearings, and it's hard to pick it up in the camera here, but where the bearings here, the round bearings rode in that groove, why the bearing wasn't spinning and it has eaten that away. Unfortunately, I had to go out and buy 2 new hub assemblies, but fortunately our local tractor store had them. So we're going to go ahead and replace both hub assemblies. There you have it. Brand new hub, bearings, everything's ready to go. Just got to bolt that wheel back on and should be all good. No more wobble, everything's good. Now I just need to go over and get the other side, but I won't bore you with that one. Let me tell you what, there's just no clean way to do that. I mean, unless you spend a lot of money on a bearing packer. But what I was doing was something I learned a long time ago, how you smear it into the palm of your hand and wait to see it come up between the bearings. But anyhow, got those hubs back on. They run real good now. And I've got these tires or these wheels to put back on. And I'd be crazy to put them back on looking like that. Got them all sandblasted, and I'm going to go ahead and put a coat of white paint on them. That's originally what the color basically was. I mean, that's cream, but most of them are white now. So we're going to go ahead and put a couple coats of white automotive spray paint on them to get them looking good again. All right, I got my first coat of primer on and hanging them from this old clothes holder or whatever you'd call these things. It's on a swivel, on a hook, and goes down in. Some hooks are made up to go through there. That allows me to rotate the rim as I spray it, so I don't have to keep walking around the whole thing. And put another one on the underside, grab it, grab the top, unhook it, and just completely flip the whole rim over so I can do both sides at one coating, and should work out pretty good. I started painting the tank on this, and boy, it came out pretty nice. Well, I know it's not much, but I added a stainless pipe nipple and an elbow to it, and I'll put a plug in there. There's the plug there. And what that does is it makes so when I do drain the oil, it doesn't run across this beam and all over the place. So it just makes changing oil a little bit easier. I know it's not much, but sometimes it's just the simple things in life. So going ahead and reflushing out the motor oil in this. I've already drained the old oil, put a little bit of new oil in it, run it for a minute. Now I'm redraining that out to make sure everything's good and clean in there. So I've been saving this old piece of I-beam, and it's 15 inches from top to bottom for a very long time. No idea what I would ever use it for, but today I think I found a use for it. All right, it wasn't easy, but I got it. And this is the beam that I cut, the I-beam, and now I'm going to weld a plate to the bottom and a plate to the top of it. And then the axle will bolt to one side and the I-beam frame will bolt to the other side. Made it 15 inches wide, so it gives plenty of leverage and support under there for travel this way, should you be going down the road and hit a pothole or something like that. But anyhow, I've got my box got my box cut up here, ready to weld the plates on and create my 14-inch riser for the log splitter. All right, got her all welded up, top, bottom, inside, out, sides. It's all ready to go. Well, I think I really need to end the video there before it starts getting too long again. But if you would, hit that subscribe button so you'll get to see the next video I post on what changes I did to this thing and how it actually has turned out. Also, if you would, don't forget to drop a comment. Tell me what you think of the build series so far. I'm trying not to make these videos too long, but keep them interesting and keep you wanting to come back more and see what this thing ends up being. So thanks, and I'll see you again soon.